Let's get it.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the Storybox podcast. Today, I have somebody who I've admired for quite a long time. He is David Nurse. Now, if you don't know who this guy is, you're about to get to know more about him today because we're going to unbox his story quite a bit. Now, David is an MBA life and optimization coach, he's actually a best-selling author, in my opinion, actually, and worldwide motivational speaker. As a former professional basketball player, both international and domestic, which is pretty incredible, and a coach for the Brooklyn Nets, David has personally helped over 150 NBA players with their personal and professional development, both on and off the court. He has been invited to speak in over 50 different countries on topics of overall personal development, confidence building, leadership, and motivational growth. His new book, Pivot and Go, is a compelling hands-on blueprint to changing course and leading the life you want to live today. In this energizing, adventurous, and actionable guide, David shares a renowned optimization on more than 150 NBA players and CEOs, and he outlines a 29-day action plan not to live it or to living a life that is your absolute best. His key in making mindset pivots allows you to shift your perspective by incremental, but also profoundly powerful degrees. David, I can go on and on and on, but welcome so much to the Storybox podcast, my friend.
Jay, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for that introduction. I'd like to hire you as my agent now.
Done. Sign. Let's do the contract. But dude, it's an honor to have you here. We've been trying to make this happen for quite some time now, but honored to have you here. Really am. Before we dive into your amazing backstory, and I have so many questions revolving around part of what I just said in the introduction, but this is a question I ask all my guests at the very start, and I'm very interested to hear your answer to it. What does success look like to you?
It's a great question. I love that start. So success to me is my relationship with Jesus Christ that I put on a daily basis, my relationship with my wife, pouring into her. Those two things. I know if I pour my time into those two things every single day, that's a successful day to me. Success is not driven by any type of results, any type of monetary figure. Sure, I love competing. I really love competition, and that's where I get my drive out of, okay, if I got to hit this number or this number, but that's not where success is. Success to me is seeing these NBA players that I work with. One of my guys just signed a 4-year, $74 million deal last night. Like, that's success. Pouring into him so that he can have that type of on-court success, or seeing people's lives change through reading the book. That's success to me. Absolutely. Serving others, giving to others, and seeing them have benefits and gain, find this just optimization of joy and confidence in who they are. That's success.
I love that, man. And I got so many questions just coming from that answer. One I'll start with is, when was the moment for you that you realized that all this that you just described was success for you? Has it been this gradual thing over time, or was there a catalyst moment somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole journey that I was on. So I was basically living out of my car / airplane, traveling all over doing basketball camps. And my thing was, okay, I'm going to hit 50 countries and then I've made it. This is what I've done. I'm going to make just this amount of money. I was going to make $1 million was my goal. I'd made this number through doing basketball camps, and like, oh, if I do this many camps, I'll get to $1 million. Now I didn't add in like expenses. I didn't think that far ahead. So I came up very short of that number, but I also found myself, and I remember it, there's a story in the book where I'm sitting up on the top of this place called Kong Mountain in Hong Kong, and I'm overlooking this beautiful view of the water, the mountains, the city. And I just felt empty. I was like, gosh, I couldn't even name you all the countries that I've been to because I wasn't really enjoying it while I was in it. I just had this destination that I wanted to get to, and I had this number that I had to hit to actually be successful and happy. And I kind of realized there after about 10 years in that it wasn't going to be the success that I had once thought, and I had to pivot my mindset of what true success is.
I love your mindset of actually pivoting, like the pivot and go mindset. I think it's very admirable and one that a lot of people need to adopt in their own life. But it is a hard mindset to actually adopt. It's not as easy as everyone sort of thinks. I want to go back a little bit first before we go into that and ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up? Like, what did you envision yourself being?
Yeah, no doubt. I envisioned myself being an NBA player. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I poured everything I had into playing in the NBA. And I'm from a small town, middle of nowhere, the cornfields of Iowa. And I'm not that athletic in NBA terms, and I'm not that tall, and I can't really jump. So basketball was probably not the best sport decision for me to make, but that's what I was going to be, man. I was going to be an NBA player, and I was going to pour into it every single day to get there. And we can fast forward. I grinded my way to play college basketball, and I played internationally overseas. And it sounds really cool to say that. I actually played in Adelaide, Australia. I love Australia. My favorite country, favorite people. Like, we could talk Australian wheat bix as much as you want. Like, I love it. I love it down there. Got a lot of good friends. Yeah. So I was playing internationally, and I was over in Spain, actually, my third year playing. And I was playing for the second division team. It's more of a joke of a league, like that movie Will Ferrell, Semi-Pro. And they're more concerned about drinking beers at halftime than they actually are development and practice. And here I am pouring these 2-a-days extra film study in, and I get cut from this team. So not only are my hopes, goals, dreams, everything I poured into my life taken away from me, that would have been the easy part, but they were turned upside down and my face rubbed in the dirt. And so I came back, and I was living in my parents' recliner chair for 5 months in Kansas City, just licking my wounds. And my mom would always say these motivational and inspirational quotes, and I would one in one ear, out the other ear, whatever, mom. But she said this one that really stuck with me, and I remember it vividly. She was doing dishes. I was sitting there, kicked back in the recliner. She said, "David, when one door closes, four open, and an entire beachfront patio overlooking the ocean." And it triggered in me. That was my pivot moment when I realized everything that I had poured into my life was not lost. It wasn't all gone. It was to prepare me. It was to set me up to be a great NBA coach and be able to take everything that I taught myself, now teach it to others who had more athletic ability and height and God-given talent.
Did being cut from that team challenge your faith at all?
Challenge my faith in Jesus.
In Jesus? Yeah.
No, I was actually, to be honest, I was a new believer at 23. So right out of college is when, and it's a crazy, like, people will think like, oh, religion. I don't even, it's not about religion. It's Jesus came to abolish religion. So when people say that, they've got it backwards. And I used to think, I can have my fun, and then I'll have Jesus later in my life, because that's boring stuff. But I was in college, my last year, I was going to this, my teammate invited me to this thing called Fuel. It's just like this get together with people, just like real low key and chill. And they were just smiles, excitement, all this great positive energy. And I literally came out of there thinking they were on drugs. Like, I was like, they're on some crack, something. But I had to keep going back. I was like, whatever this is, I want to try this drug out. And I kept going back and kept going back. And then I realized, like, this is what actually living for Jesus is about. Like, it's about truly, like, pouring into others, not worrying about what comes of it for you, but just genuinely serving. So, I mean, he came to serve, not to be served. So yeah, when I got cut from that team in Spain, like, it hurt. I mean, it hurt a lot, and I licked my wounds for a while, but I didn't lose that faith. Like, I knew that there's a greater plan for me, and I didn't know when it was going to come. I didn't know how it was going to come or what package it was going to come in, but I did have the faith that I know there's a greater plan for me. And that's huge for people right now to understand. Like, there's something great out there for you. You don't know when it's going to come, but if you prepare daily, like, your opportunity is going to come tomorrow, you'll be ready for it when it does come. But if you feel bad for yourself and just sit there and just blame everybody else for your situation or your circumstances, you only have one place to point, is back at yourself. So yeah, I mean, it's just a freeing understanding too of, like, we don't have to, it's not on all our shoulders. Like, Jesus takes that from us. He's got the plan. We can just rest in that. The rest is just house money we're living with here, man.
I feel like when bad things sort of happen to us, we immediately want to blame God and say that it's his fault for bringing us to this point. But I always say that God brings us to exactly where we need to be. It may not be where we want to be, but it's exactly where we need to be. And because in my life, man, I've walked away from him like 3 times now. But in those 3 times that I did walk away, I was miserable first and foremost. I did question, I did blame, and I am ashamed of doing that because God brought me to a place of, number one, repentance, number two, humility, and number three, realizing that I did need him more than anything else. So that was exactly what I needed, was for me to realize that walking away from him was a big mistake, and that I needed to really just get serious with my relationship with God, not with the religion side of things, but my relationship with my Heavenly Father, because that's the most meaningful thing and the most fulfilling thing
Mm,
ever. Like nothing is ever going to satisfy close to your walk with God. That's my advice to anyone that is listening, honestly.
yeah, I love that, man. That juices me up, gives me goosebumps. So proud of you being able to speak about that on air. Most people shy away from it even when they believe. So I love you for that, brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate your testimony as well, like being able to be authentically you and not shy away from, because it is very easy, especially in the kind of like job environment and speaking your truth, all this sort of stuff. It is very hard to sort of bring God into the mix as well. And I've noticed a very similar thing because there's so many different opinions, outlooks on life. But I think it's more important that we be true to ourselves and true to God. And God even says, blessed are they that are persecuted in my name's sake. And I'd rather be persecuted in God's name than persecuted in somebody else's name or in my own name. Like that's just the reality of it for me. And I know it's different for other people. But dude, I'm curious for you. Is there a particular story in your life that God has sort of made himself known more than ever before?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I remember it vividly when I was in Brazil. I was doing some basketball camps down there, and I'd been going all day, man, like literally all day. I was exhausted. And when I go to another country, I like to embrace the food that they have. And Brazil has this just amazingly fresh acai. Like if you think you've had acai before, you haven't until you've been to Brazil. So I was like, I got to get some acai. I got to. So the camp winded down, and now the people that brought me down there had some kids, and they wanted to play some kids basketball games, so they were going to do that, and I needed something to eat, so I had to get out of there. And the guy said, "Hey, there's an acai place. Go follow this guy. He'll take you there." So I just went and jumped in the car. Didn't tell my guys who were looking after me where I was going. I just blindly trusted him. And this guy spoke no English, and we're driving, we're winding. I can't even name you the city. It was south of Recife. So it was like 2 hours south of Recife, some just big old city. And we're going all over the place. I had no idea how I would get back. I mean, obviously, unless the guy brought me back. So he drops me off at the acai, and I literally make it very clear. I was like, stay here, stay. I'm giving him the motions to just stay. I'll go get it, and I'll be right back. And I hop out. He takes off. And I'm a little confused. I was thinking, okay, he's probably just going to park, or he's going to go around the block, circle the block. He'll be back. So I got my acai and enjoyed it. And then about 15 minutes went by. I'm like, all right, where is this guy? I start walking around a little bit looking for him. Another 15, an hour goes by. I'm going into grocery stores asking anybody if they can speak English. Nobody speaks English in Brazil. They don't. They speak Portuguese, not English. So I'm like, this is over. I don't know how to get back to where I'm at. I don't have a phone on me. Like, I don't know. The people that I came with don't even know where I'm at. So I literally sat down there in the corner, and I put my hands in my face and started crying. And just as I literally said out loud, God, this is all you. I need you. And I kid you not, like 3 minutes later, this car pulls up, and it was this guy that we had lunch with the day before, who spoke no English either. He saw me leave the gym, and I had been talking about at lunch the day before how much I'd like acai. So he saw me leave the gym, and then I didn't come back for a while. So he got worried and came and found me at this acai place. It was an answered prayer from God right there. And I was like, wow, okay, this is the real deal.
Damn, what a story.
Yeah, I might still be living in Brazil right now. I mean, it might not be a
You
bad
never
thing, but
know.
you know.
You just never know, man. I found that story like absolutely incredible. There's been many moments in my own life, man, that have been rather similar. And one in particular, I'll just quickly share that in 2016, I had walked away from God and I was kind of living my own life, sort of doing my own thing, having fun, going beach hopping and all that sort of thing. I had the rip six pack, everything. I was driving home with my friends in the car, and I don't know if you've been to Sydney, Australia, but the traffic is absolutely ludicrous. And I was merging onto the highway, onto the M2 or something like that. And as I was merging, there was a concrete truck in the left-hand lane that was trying to merge into the right-hand lane, and I was trying to merge into the other right-hand lane to then get onto the freeway. There's 3 lanes, but I didn't see the concrete divider between the 3 lanes that was separating them. And the truck didn't see me. I was in a small Holden Barina, and he almost took me out. I took evasive action, and my car wheel went over the concrete divider, snapped the wheel alignment. My steering wheel locked up, and my car started going over to the right into traffic that is going the same direction. So I could have been taken out. Um, one of my good mates is in the back seat. He's fast asleep. And my other friend that is in the front seat, he's just like completely oblivious to what the heck's going on. And in that moment, the amazing thing happened. I could not move the steering wheel, couldn't move it. But then the car just went off to the side, to the left-hand side where it was safe. And I was like, I could not believe it. No one was hurt. Everyone was safe. We get to a safe spot. And I just like literally, I wasn't shaking at all. I was at peace, like this insane calmness. And I'd never had an accident before in my life. That was a God moment. God took control of the wheel, literally, and moved the car over. Like
It's so amazing, man.
You can't pick those kinds of moments, man, but you just know that it is God. He is real and he takes care of his own. Like,
Yeah, it's such a cool story, man. I got goosebumps over here. Seriously, that's amazing. But the thing too is like the things that we don't even know that happened to us, God's protecting us from. We don't give him any credit for that. Like we have these amazing stories like that, and a lot of people might have those, but I mean, there's a lot of things going on out there that could happen to you, but he's protecting you from. We don't even know.
And yet we oftentimes do the blame game, and he just continues to show up. It's faithful, it's love, and it's honestly incredible. I want to ask you about going back to more your story and like starting out and getting your full on start. Like, what was the transition like for you going from a player to then being a coach?
Yeah. So I made my goal to coach in the NBA. Now I was going to do anything to give myself the opportunity to do that. At the time, I didn't have any connections in the NBA. So I literally sat down, hand wrote a letter to every NBA GM, telling them something that I liked about their organization, something unique. And then I just, at the end of it, I said, if you need anything, if there's any way that I can serve you, just let me know. Like I wasn't saying, hey, I'll come work hard if you give me a job. Like, no, I realized everybody else is going to do that too. So I went that extra mile, and one GM got back to me. It was the GM of the Los Angeles Clippers at the time, Gary Sachs. And we had a good conversation. And basically he's like, if you're ever out in LA, look me up, we'll grab coffee. Kind of like, good luck with the rest of your life. But I took that as an invitation. So I booked a ticket to LA, used all the money I had, booked a ticket to LA to be out there the next week. And I studied up on the Clippers. So we had some good talking points, and me and Gary had a great conversation out there. And literally Gary's one of my closest friends. I lived with him when I moved to LA. He was one of the groomsmen in my wedding a year and a half ago. Like it all came from that. And all my relationships in the NBA, now I have a friend at basically every team, a coach or a player. All my relationships came from that connection. And it was about not being afraid to hear the word no. And we're so often, we think things are just going to be handed to us. Like, all right, I'll just wait for it. And maybe it'll come, but doubtful. You got to go get it. Go get it. Take a risk. If the worst thing that would have happened to me is nobody would have got back to me, I would have been at the same spot. I would have pivoted and I would have tried a different angle, but I was never going to give up from it.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the way I got into the NBA. And I just like, I'd been training some of my teammates. Actually, the first guy is an Aussie. He was a teammate of mine in Greece, Aaron Baines. He's one of
No
my
way.
best. Yeah, he was in my wedding too. He's one of my best friends. And now he plays for my uncle. He plays for my uncle now, who coaches the Toronto Raptors, which is crazy. But so I started training him, and he liked it. And other teammates came in, and agents got involved. And so it just kind of compiles when you're really passionate about doing something and do it with a service mentality. Like it takes a long time. Sure. Like people will ask me, hey man, can I train some NBA players? Oh, I'm like, okay, well, you go put in 7 years of doing basketball camps for fifth graders and then you'll be ready. But nobody wants to take the long route with it.
No, everyone's looking for the quick shortcuts and
Yeah.
quick successes. I'm actually writing a book at the moment. I've titled The Path of an Eagle. And in that book, I have an illustration of that very thing. Two people, two totally different mindsets. The majority of people, when they face a mountain, there's two paths to the mountain. The majority of people will take the easiest road to the top rather than the hard one. And I explain it a lot better in my book as well, but it's very, very true. No one wants to get the rejections. No one wants to suffer through that because it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what advice would you give to a young person that is going through a lot of rejection and is trying to get his start?
Yeah, it's really tough. It's tough to hear rejection time and time again because we thrive off the momentum of hearing yeses. And the thing that drives us the most, more than money when it's studied in companies, is appreciation, that feeling of appreciation, like you matter. So rejection is very hard. But if you can have this mindset of looking as rejection a setback, rejection is actually a set up. It's only sharpening you, preparing you, like we've been talking about, for something greater to come. Just like a diamond, it becomes so much shinier the more intense heat that it goes through. A palm tree out here in Los Angeles, I love palm trees. They grow deeper roots through storms. So when a storm comes, a rejection comes, they actually come out of it stronger. So if you can look at these situations, which is tough in the moment, and there's some things, some tools that I teach about how to just stop in the moment and pause, and then learn how to pivot from there. Like literally just take a step back out of yourself. You can see these rejection points as these learning situations. It's what people would call failure. But the definition of failure to me is not just a way to learn and grow. It is ultimately the only way to learn and grow. Successes are great. That's the momentum, little spark, little igniter. But the true learning, the true growth is when we hear these rejections. And now the ones that succeed are the ones that can take those rejections, soak them in, learn from them, and keep going. Don't ever put your head down. Don't ever give up. Just keep going.
Now I'm even more curious. I have a question that I've only asked a few people on here, but I'm going to ask you, what would you rather, sink or swim?
Would I rather sink or swim?
Yes.
I mean, I'm swimming. I don't want to sink.
How come?
I'm swimming. I'm fighting for my life all the time.
So with that analogy that you just mentioned of the failures, the setbacks, everything, what do you learn first when you're younger? Do you learn how to swim first or do you learn how to sink first?
Great call. Yeah. I mean, you learn how to swim. Natural inclination, if you're put in the water, you're going to sink, but you're taught how to swim.
Exactly. So the analogy or the metaphor really, and thank you for clearing that up, is really that everyone wants to swim because swimming is easy, swimming is good. It means safety, security. But in order to get there, we've got to sink a little bit first.
Yeah.
And that's gonna teach us the progression. It's like I'm constantly swimming or just keep swimming, that sort of thing, constantly pushing for the top. Now there's a difference between sinking and drowning. Drowning is I've given up. I'm done. sinking, you haven't given up. There's still a fight in you. And until you got to keep that mindset of it's okay to sink, it's okay to swim, but it's definitely not okay to drown.
Mm,
So I thought
beautiful.
I'd share that with you.
I like that, man. I'm going to use that analogy. That's a powerful analogy. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. I use it in my book, and I explain it a lot better in my book too. But it's not about
Can't
me.
wait
I
for your book,
apologize.
man. Your book's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it to come out. You'll have to send me a copy.
I will, man, 100%. But I want to sort of steer this conversation back to you. I apologize if I've gone off keel. But you now teach a lot of NBA players, and you help a lot of them with mindset and growth and everything like that. I'm curious, what do you think separates a good coach from a great coach, in your opinion?
Actually, truly caring. The best coaches in the NBA are ones that truly, genuinely care about people outside of just the sports and the results that they're getting. Good coaches can get by running their system and really smart and just the X's and O's, and that's the that's the Tom Thibodeau's and those kind. Which, I don't mean to say like he's a bad coach. He's a really good coach, but there's coaches like my uncle or my friend Eric Spoelstra or Steve Kerr, Brad Stevens, who just genuinely really care about these Popovich, care about these guys off the court. And when players know that, they realize they're not just, sure, they know it's a business, but they're not just these robots, and that they're actually, like we talked about earlier, appreciated. And when you appreciate your players, that's going to make you a great coach.
And what has been the worst piece of advice that you've ever received from someone?
The worst piece of advice I've ever received from someone? Well, that's a really good question. I would have to say, the worst piece of advice I would say is taking any advice from somebody who hasn't been there or done it before. That's a doubter, or someone who even taking advice from your mom who's trying to tell you, who's trying to keep you safe, who's trying to keep you comfortable. I'm not saying my mom did this necessarily, but people will take advice. They'll ask their parents for everything. Are your parents an expert in everything you're doing? No. Look to these people that have done it before. Take advice from them. Don't just take advice from anybody and their cousin saying stuff.
I think it was Grant Cardone said something very similar. He's like, I would never go to my mother for business advice. I would go to my mother for obviously relationship advice, love advice, all that sort of stuff. But for business, he's like, she's not the right person to go to if that she's not in business. That was his example, which I think is pretty powerful. So I appreciate you sharing that, man. It's great advice. Couple more questions for you, man, if you don't mind. By the way, I'm a huge fan of the Miami Heat. So Eric Spoelstra is a huge fan. I'm a huge fan anyway. Leadership and confidence. Now, what in your opinion makes a great leader?
A great leader is someone who has the outlook that they don't want to lead forever. Great leaders want to lead others to lead others. So it's about giving, not about giving a man a fish, but teaching them how to fish and literally giving people tools for how to do it. Great leaders don't speak down on people. They lead together as a group. They have different people of different strengths and they lead together through that. So there's no down leadership, but it's all across the board equality.
Is there a question that you have right now that you haven't been able to answer yet?
Is there a question that I haven't been able to answer yet, like in my personal life?
Personal life, business, whatever it is.
No, not really, to be honest. I struggle with the just doing and not being able to shut things off as much as I would like. Like I struggle with that part because part of working for yourself and growing your own thing. And like I'm on a mission. My mission is to inspire, encourage people with true ultimate joy, show them Jesus through doing it. Basically be Tony Robbins mixed with John Maxwell leadership, mixed with Tim Grover, Jordan and Kobe's trainer. So that's the mission I'm on. And it gets frustrating times when I think I should be going here or there, and there's setbacks, and I just have to remind myself of my own things that I teach people, of the tools that I give them. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a question like, talk to me in a couple of years when me and my wife have kids. I'll have a million questions I don't know the answer to. Yeah, there's a lot of questions I don't know the answer to.
Mm.
But I know that God's going to work out this plan that He has for me the way it's supposed to be.
Mm. Amen, man. I love it. And I'm excited to see your growth and development as you are continuing to grow more and more. Every day I see something new, which is pretty exciting from your point of view, and for those that are watching and learning from you. I think it's very admirable, dude. So I appreciate you. Couple more questions. This one may be a hard one to answer, but you have a podcast. So I want people to go and listen to that one. You recently had Dean Graziosi on, who's an alumni of the Storybox too. Great individual, by the way. If you were to ask a question to anyone alive or dead, who would it be, why, and what question would you ask them?
Man, I love that question. Is it kind of a cop out to say I would love to ask Jesus a question?
No,
I would love to ask him. Okay, I really want to ask him how he had the pace of his life that he did. I call it Jesus pace. You know, he got so much done. He was doing so much, but he was never in a hurry. Any random stranger that came along, he gave him the time of day. He hung with them. Like, how do you have that type of pace? Myself, if I have some random stranger come along, I'm like, nope, don't got time for you. It's not on my schedule. So like, yeah, I want to figure out how to have that Jesus pace.
That's a good question, man. I'm going to think about that myself.
Let me know if you know the answer.
Yeah, I will. I probably won't, but anyway, maybe one day when I get to heaven, and I'll ask him too. But my second last question for you. This is more of a fun one. But what is the weirdest food combination you've ever had?
Oh, you're asking a world traveler. I went to, when I was in Beijing, China, I went to this street where they had everything fried. So I don't know if I'll call it a combination, but I had starfish, cicada. I think donkey was in there. I'm not proud of it, man. There's frog legs. There was another kind of bug. I don't know. I was young and dumb, and I would never do it again. So it's a weird combination. There's another one in the Philippines. When I was in the Philippines on my birthday, I asked them to make me a Filipino dish, and it was so good. I had no idea what it was. And afterwards they told me it was like cow intestines and blood soup or something disgusting sounding.
Oh, mate.
Fear factor has nothing on me on the food that I've eaten, man.
Oh, dude. Speaking about fear, is there a fear right now that you haven't been able to conquer?
No, the only fear that I have is the safety of the ones that I love. Like my only fear is of my wife, if something tragic would happen, or my family. Like it's something that's completely out of my control. But any fears that happen to me, I don't really have any fears like that. I don't have a fear of failure. I don't, like, if it happens, then I'm learning, like I've talked about. So not really personal fears, just for the fears of the people I love.
I love it, man. My final question. It's my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. I apologize if I've gone over time, but I want you, it's a hypothetical one. So imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends have decided as a present to put together a film for you, the David Nurse film, of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll call it magic. And the dark web, the exoterical, you name it. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Very simple. He served. He genuinely served. I want it to be the theme of it, of pouring into others. He poured into himself to develop himself so that he could pour into others. That's it. Yeah. And I want all the travels. I want all the cool travels. And so I know all the places that I went to. I want a lot of pictures of my wife in there because she's beautiful. She's way cooler than I am. And yeah, then I just want people to know that he served.
You get brownie points at the end there when she listens.
And you know what, though? People have told me that before when I talk about her on a podcast, but it's like, I'm not trying to score points. It just comes out of me. Like the way that I talk about Jesus just comes out of me. Talking about my wife comes out of me because she's my much, much better half for sure.
I love it, man. Where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more about who you are and buy your book?
Yeah. So book is anywhere books live, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, my website, davidnurse.com. The book is Pivot and Go. Social media, David Nurse NBA, Instagram, Twitter, all that. I do a Be the Breakthrough. This is a in-depth, I help people find their personal breakthrough, kind of like I did in my own life. And we tool them with these mindset tools. So that is just reaching out to me personally, because I like to be very personal about that. But yeah, my podcast, Pivot and Go podcast, or come out here to LA and kick it.
Love it, dude. David Nurse, thank you so much, man, for everything that you're doing, your story, and for coming on the Storybox podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. You're an awesome human being. I love what you're doing for so many people, the positive influence you are, the influence of Jesus you are. So keep it up, brother. Proud of you.